And go ahead and get started.
And good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. And the study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 117 at the line that says the faith and sincerity, and will end on page 119, undreamed of future. And our study tonight will be the very next sentence, starting on page 119, still another difficulty, and will end at the end of the chapter on page 121, where it says, God bless you. Do we have any announcements?
Hi family, my name's Jamie. I am a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and Trish has sent out minutes from our last group conscience. No, she hasn't. Okay. Well, she.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did last week.
Yeah. See, I knew you did, and probably sent out the GSR report too. If not, the GSR report will be coming out, and it will be my final GSR report, because as we go into first quarter assembly, I have become District 40's DCM. So we have a group conscience coming up next Monday night, and then we have assembly right after that. And so everybody who's a home group member, please come to the group conscience if at all possible, and that will get posted in the chat. If you're not a home group member and you want to see how this group operates, come join us. You won't have a vote, but you will certainly get to see how we operate, and maybe that will help you determine whether or not you'd like to become a home group member. And Trish has a real special announcement tonight, so I'll shut up.
I thought it was your announcement. I'm just doing the background.
Oh, okay. So 5 years ago tonight, in this, well, not this very Zoom room, but in my house, was the birth of Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. And so Trish has a couple of things like fireworks to show, and I think she's also going to show a couple of pictures real quick of what the meeting used to look like when it was bricks and mortar here. And Ryan Reynolds was not here, I can promise you that. Did you lose them, Trish?
No, but since the commercial came up and I have to pull up the pictures, I figured that would be a good time to stop the fireworks anyhow.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Just bear with us a couple of extra seconds, folks, because we're glad to be celebrating 5 years. And then come like April 6th, we will be celebrating 5 years on Zoom as 100% virtual group. I think it's in the archives, right?
Yes.
So this meeting started with myself and 12 other alcoholics here on a Tuesday night, and you guys have heard in the how we arrived at this point before, that's how this meeting started. So that's what it used to look like at my house. Tables across the living room into the kitchen, and coffee pots and coffee cups, and looking like a traditional meeting hall. And here's all I can say, folks. I am very blessed and very honored to have all of you here and to have you be part of Primary Purpose. So thank you for your participation over the years. Okay, I guess we can continue on with the script and do what we're supposed to do, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me get my script back up. Okay, so And good evening, I'm a recovered alcoholic and my name is Jamie. Welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get yourself situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing. It's not to distract others or maybe even yourself. And we suggest that we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus on your breath and posture and breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And let's invite those cute little monks in to do what the monks do so well. Here, let me change that back around. Back to stage one, don't you?
Don't exit stage one.
Enjoy your time with God, folks. Welcome back, and please join us in our family's fog light prayer on the screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Shayla.
Hello, I'm Shayla. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Terry to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identified as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Terry.
Well, thank you. I'm Terry, recovered alcoholic, aka Pickle Chips. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body, page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Charitable Fellowship Cage, where we chatted for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously, because if this chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried. 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. We have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time. Okay, and then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. Is anybody celebrating a milestone this week? Hey, if you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in chat on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website, posted in the chat. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Shayla, for your service tonight, and thank you, Pickle Chips, for your service as well. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last time, because before the holidays, we reviewed Tradition 9. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 10. And please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And our traditionalist tonight is Susan. Come on in, Susan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Susan, and I am an alcoholic. And this is Tradition 10, short form. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And the long form, which, right? No AA group or member should ever, in such a way as to implicate AA, express any opinion on outside controversial issues, particularly those of politics, alcohol reform, or sectarian religion. The Alcoholics Anonymous groups oppose no one. Concerning such matters, they can express no views whatever. And Tradition 10 emphasizes the importance of AA's singleness of purpose. And I see this. And I found some information in Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age that I really like. So we think the future safety of Alcoholics Anonymous greatly depends upon Tradition 10, AA's principle of no controversy at the public level. Since it began, Alcoholics Anonymous never has been divided by a major controversial issue. Our fellowship never has taken sides publicly on any question in this embattled world. This has been no earned virtue. It could almost be said that we were born with it, for as one old-timer recently declared, practically never have I heard a heated religious, political, or reform argument among AA members. So long as we don't argue these matters privately, it's a cinch we never shall argue them publicly. As by some deep instinct, we have known from the very beginning that no matter what the provocation, we must never publicly take sides as AAs in any fight, even a worthy one. All history affords us the spectacle of striving nations and groups finally torn asunder because they were designed for or tempted into controversy. Others fell apart because of sheer self-righteousness while trying to force upon the rest of mankind some millennium of their own specification. In our own times, we have seen millions die in political and economic wars, often spurred by religious and radical differences. We live in the imminent possibility of a fresh Holocaust to determine how men shall be governed and how the products of nature and toil shall be divided. I really like the Tradition 10 prayer. Please help me, God, to remember to do my part to provide a safe environment and avoid being drawn into public controversy. And outside issues is anything outside of I feel it's outside of my relationship with God through sobriety. And AA members are free to act and speak as individuals as they see fit regarding various issues, but not the society as a whole. We conceive the survival and spread of Alcoholics Anonymous to be something of far greater importance than the weight we could collectively throw back on any other cause. For me, this tradition speaks of my need for sobriety is life. It's about my life, whether I live or die. And that's what this tradition means to me. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Susan. Great job. And now it is time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. And we hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with what the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things that we often hear is, you only work one step a year. Take your time to work the steps. And Nancy is going to come in and tell us what it has to say in the book on page 63 in the third paragraph. Welcome, Nancy. You're muted, Nancy.
That's alcoholic. Next, we left out on the course of vigorous action.
Thank you so much, my friend.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we're going to start our recap on page 117, which will be read by John, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Gandalf Pickle. After the pages are read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back at our study portion that was read by Donald, aka Gandalf Pickle. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, We open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting. For example, with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
Hey, I did the first half. You get to do the second half of this.
Okay, how we arrived at this point. And like Jamie said, tonight is our 5th year anniversary of being a group, which is a really cool thing. And the meeting did start out in Jamie's house, and then we shut down for COVID and then came back on Zoom. But we didn't just randomly open the book tonight and say, hey, let's read the last couple of pages of the Two Wives chapter. Our study starts on the title page, and we read each page all the way through page 164 in this question and answer format. After we read that, we then also use the same study format to read Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and we spend 2 weeks on the traditions, and then we end up on our week 94 doing a week on Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience. We also pull that into the study 3 different times early on when it's referred to in the footnotes. So we get to talk about spirituality a whole lot in here. So tonight we will be finishing up Two Wives. We're in week 70 of a 93-week or 94-week study, so we're about 2/3 of the way done. And then when we get to the end, we will go all the way back to the title page and start it all over again.
Yeah, so there. Well, before we begin the recap, we'll need about 5 or 6 virtual hands raised for those of you who would like to answer the questions out of the book when we get to that portion after the study reading. And the answers will come directly from what we read out of the book. So, who is doing the recap?
John. John is doing the recap.
I'm John, alcoholic. Page 117. The faith and sincerity of both of you and your husband will be put to the test. These workouts should be regarded as part of your education, for thus you will be learning to live. You will make mistakes, but if you are in earnest, they will not drag you down. Instead, you will capitalize them. A better way of life will emerge when they are overcome. Some of the snags you will encounter are irritation, hurt, feelings, and resentments. Your husband will sometimes be unreasonable, and you will want to criticize. Starting from a speck on the domestic horizon, great thunderclouds of dispute may gather. These family dissensions are very dangerous, especially to your husband. Often he must carry the burden of avoiding them or keeping them under control. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. We do not mean that you have to agree with your husband whenever there is an honest difference of opinion. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit. You and your husband will find that you can dispose of serious problems easier than you can the trivial ones. Next time, you and he have a heated discussion. No matter what the subject, it should be the privilege of either to smile and say, "This is getting serious. I'm sorry I got disturbed. Let's talk about it later. If your husband is trying to live on a spiritual basis, he will also be doing everything in his power to avoid disagreement or contention. Your husband knows he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. You must not expect too much. His ways of thinking and doing are the habits of years. Patience, tolerance, understanding, and love are the watchwords. Show him these things in yourself, and they will be reflected back to you from him. Live and let live is the rule. If you both show a willingness to remedy your own defects, there will be little need to criticize each other. We women carry with us a picture of the ideal man, the sort of chap we would like our husbands to be. It is the most natural thing in the world, once his liquor problem is solved, to feel that he will now measure up to that cherished vision. The chances are he will not, for, like yourself, he is just beginning his development. Be patient. Another feeling we are very likely to entertain is the one of resentment that love and loyalty could not cure our husbands of alcoholism. We do not like the thought that the contents of a book or the work of another alcoholic has accomplished in a few weeks that for which we struggled for years. At such moments, we forget that alcoholism is an illness over which we could not possibly have had any power. Your husband will be the first to say it was your devotion and care which brought him to the point where he could have a spiritual experience. Without you, he would have gone to pieces long ago. When resentful thoughts come, try to pause and count your blessings. After all, your family is reunited. Alcohol is no longer a problem, and you and your husband are working together toward an undreamed of future. I'm John Alcoholic. Thanks for allowing me to be of service.
Thank you very much, John. And Gandalf, please come on in with this week's study.
Try out that new big book.
Yeah, it's like, it's like I gotta wear these and stuff because the pages are so bright. They're so big. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald, and I am a grateful, recovered, but not cured alcoholic. And continuing on page 119. So another difficulty is that you may become jealous of the attention he bestows on other people, especially alcoholics. You have been starving for his companionship, yet he spends long hours helping other men and their families. You feel he should now be yours. The fact is that he should work with other people to maintain his own sobriety. Sometimes he will be so interested that he becomes really neglectful. Your house is filled with strangers. You may not like some of them. He gets stirred up about their troubles, but not about yours. It will do little good if you point out that, tongue-tied. It will do little good if you point that out and urge more attention for yourself. We find it a real mistake to dampen his enthusiasm for alcoholic work. You should join him in his efforts as much as you possibly can. We suggest that you direct some of your thought to the wives of his new alcoholic friends. They need the counsel and love of a woman who has gone through what you have. It is probably true that you and your husband have been living too much alone, for drinking many times isolates the wives of the alcoholic. Therefore, you probably need fresh interest and a great cause to live for as much as your husband. And a great cause to live for as much as you have. If you cooperate rather than complain, you will find that his excess enthusiasm will tone down. Both of you will awaken to a new sense of responsibility for others. You, as well as your husband, ought to think of what you can put into life instead of how much you can take out. Inevitably, your lives will be fuller for doing so. You will lose the old life to find one much better. Perhaps your husband will make a fair start on the new basis, but just as things are going beautifully, he dismays you by coming home drunk. If you are satisfied he really wants to get over drinking, you need not be alarmed, though it is infinitely better that he have no relapse at all, as has been true with many of our men. It is by no means a bad thing in some cases. Your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive. You need not remind him of his spiritual deficiency. He will know of it. Cheer him up and ask him how you can be still more helpful. The slightest sign of fear or intolerance may lessen your husband's chance of recovery. In a weak moment, he may take your dislike of his high-stepping friends as one of those insanely trivial excuses to drink. We never try to arrange a man's life so as to shield him from temptation. The slightest deposition on your part to guide his disappointments or his affairs so he will not be tempted will be noticed. Make him feel absolutely free to come and go as he likes. This is important. If he gets drunk, don't blame yourself. God has either removed your husband's liquor problem or he has not. If not, it had better be found out right away. Then you and your husband can get right down to fundamentals. If a repetition is to be prevented, place the problem, along with everything else, in God's hands. We realize that we have been giving you direction and advice. We may have seemed to lecture. If that is so, we are sorry. For we ourselves don't always care for people who lecture us. But what we have related is based upon experience. Some of it is painful. We had to learn these things the hard way. That is why we are anxious that you understand and that you avoid these unnecessary difficulties. And asterisks. Okay, the Fellowship of Al-Anon Family Groups was formed about 13 years after the chapter was written, or this chapter was written. Though it is entirely separate from Alcoholics Anonymous, it uses the general principles of the AA program as a guide for husbands, wives, relatives, friends, and other close to alcoholics. The foregoing pages, though addressed only to wives, indicate the problems such people may face. Alateen for teenage children of alcoholics is a part of Al-Anon. If there is no Al-Anon listing in your local telephone book, what's that? You may obtain further information on Al-Anon Alateen family groups by writing to its World Service Office, 1600 Corporate Landing Parkway, Virginia Beach, Virginia, or website www.alanon.org. So, getting back to where we were in the book. So to you out there who may soon be with us, we say good luck and God bless you.
Thank you, Donald. And thank you, John, both for reading and helping us open up the meeting. So we are now going to go into our questions, and I have plenty of question answerers. Thank you. And our batting order tonight will be Kenny, Linda, Nancy, Alyssa, Lisa, William, and Shayna. So Kenny, you get the first and all of you please go ahead and unmute. And Kenny, you get the first question. And going back to where Gandalf started reading on page 119, Kenny, what is still another difficulty you may face?
Still another difficulty is that you may become jealous of the attention he bestows on other people, especially alcoholics.
Thank you. And Linda, a two-part question for you. A, what have you been starving for? And B, yet what does the fool do?
You have been starving for his companionship, yet he spends long hours helping others, men and their families.
Thank you. And Nancy, you think he should be doing what?
You feel he should not be yours.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what fact should you remember?
The fact is that he should work with other people to maintain his own sobriety.
Thank you. And what will happen sometimes, Lisa?
Sometimes he will be so interested that he becomes really neglectful.
Thank you. William, who will you find hanging out in your home?
Your house is filled with the strangers.
Thank you. And Shayna, will they all be likable?
You may not like some of them.
That's true. And back to you, Kenny. What does he do for them that he won't do for you?
He gets stirred up about their trouble, but not at all about yours.
Thank you. Linda, is it a good idea to straighten him out on this?
It will do little good if you point that out and urge more attention for yourself.
Thank you. And Nancy, what would be a big mistake?
We find it is a real mistake to dampen his enthusiasm for alcoholic work.
Thank you. And Alyssa, instead, what should you do?
You should join in his efforts as much as you possibly can.
Thank you. And what do we suggest you do, Lisa?
We suggest that you direct some of your thought to the wives of his new alcoholic friends.
And William, what do they need?
They need the counsel and love of a woman who has gone through what you have.
Thank you. Shayna, what is probably true?
It is probably true that you and your husband have been living too much alone, or drinking many times isolates the life of an alcoholic.
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you again. Therefore, you probably need what?
Therefore, you probably need fresh interest and the great cause to live for as much as your husband.
Yes. And Linda, if you cooperate with rather than complain at him, what will happen?
If you cooperate rather than complain, you will find that his excess enthusiasm will tone down.
Thank you. And Nancy, both of you will awaken to a new what?
Both of you will awaken to a new sense of responsibility for others.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what should both of you think about?
You, as well as your husband, ought to think of what you can put into life instead of how much you can take out.
Thank you. And Lisa, if you do, what will be inevitable?
Inevitably, your lives will be fuller for doing so.
Thank you. William, what will you give up and what will you get?
Use the old life to find one much better.
Absolutely. And Shayna, perhaps you will encounter what as a real disappointment?
Perhaps your husband will make the fair start on the new basis. But just as things are going beautifully, he dismays you by coming home drunk.
And Linda, if you know he really wants to recover, should you be worried?
If you are satisfied he really wants to get over drinking, you need not be alarmed.
Thank you. And Nancy, a two-part question. A, what is infinitely better? And B, but a relapse may not be what?
There is infinitely better that he had no relapse at all, as has been true with many of our men. It is by no means a bad thing in some cases.
Thank you. And Alyssa, a relapse may do what for him?
Your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive.
And I'm coming in with a comment. After 3 weeks sobriety, we're missing a word there. We got to edit that, Trish. After 3 weeks of sobriety, a bad drunk is what it took Dr. Bob to surrender to the whole program as we understand it today.
Thank you, Jamie. And Lisa, a two-part question for you. A, what will you not need to remind him of? And B, why won't you need to do that?
You need not remind him of his spiritual deficiency. He will know of it.
That's true. And William, what should you do instead?
Cheer him up. Ask him how you can be still more helpful.
Thank you. And Shayna, what will place your husband's recovery in jeopardy?
The slightest sign of fear or intolerance may lessen your husband's chance of recovery.
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you. If he is at a weak moment, what might happen if you do?
In a weak moment, he may take your dislike of his high-stepping friends as one of those insanely trivial excuses to drink.
Thank you. And Linda, what is it we never try to do?
Never, never try to arrange a man's life so as to shield him from temptation.
Thank you. And Nancy, what will he notice very quickly?
The slightest disposition on your part to guide his appointments or his affairs, so he will not be tempted, will be noticed.
Thank you. And are you supposed to give to him complete freedom, Alyssa?
Make him feel absolutely free to come and go as he likes.
Thank you. Lisa, why?
This is important.
Thank you. William, what if he gets drunk?
If he get drunk, don't blame yourself.
Right. And Shayna, God either has or hasn't done what?
God has either removed your husband's liquor problems or he has not.
Thank you. Kenny, back to you again. When do you need to know this?
If not, it is better to be found out right away.
That's true. And Linda, then the two of you can do what?
Then you and your husband can get right down to the fundamentals.
Thank you. Nancy, if return to drinking is to be prevented, what must happen?
If a repetition is to be prevented, place the problem along with everything else in God's hand.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what do we realize?
We realize that we have been giving you much direction and advice.
Thank you. And Lisa, what may we have seemed to do?
We may have seemed to lecture.
Thank you. And William, a two-part question for you. A, if it appears to be so with you, please accept our what? And B, how do we like to be lectured?
If that is so, we are sorry, but we ourselves don't always care for people who lecture us.
Thank you. That's it. And Shayna, what has this chapter been based on?
But what we have related is based upon experience. Some of it painful.
Thank you. And Kenny, how did we learn?
We had learned these things the hard way.
Thank you. And Linda, so what is the main motivation for this chapter?
That is why we are anxious that you understand and that you avoid these unnecessary difficulties.
And Nancy, you get the last question of our study this week. Our message to you potential members is what?
So to you out there who may soon be with us, we say good luck and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, if you have experience with the portion of the book that was just read, you are free to share. Please be mindful of your time and that others may have their hands raised and are waiting to share. A friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. We're now open for comment, questions, observations, and spiritual experiences on what was just read. And a quick reminder, please remember to watch your time. Try to limit your sharing to about 5 minutes or less so that everyone who wants to have a chance to share will be able to.
Would you like for me to put up the time?
We have someone to do it tonight, but thank you for offering. We'll keep you in mind for next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so Alyssa, I see your hand down. Your hand up. Thanks for kicking us off.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you for all of the readers, everybody here being of service. As I'm reading, like my highlighter and my pen, I'm just, there's one thing, did I say Alyssa recovered alcoholic? There's one thing that I've been able to identify with this book, is that if I'm reading it and I come in with an open mind, Bill is saying the same thing over and over again, just in different ways. And all of, what I highlighted was, that's identifying the problem and going right to the solution, right? We stick to the message and not the mess. We have to identify the problem, but we move into the solution. That's what that last paragraph on page 120 reminded me of. But there's step 11 in there, step 10, step 12. I referenced on page 77 where it talks about, our real purpose is to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It tells the wife, cheer him up and ask how you can still be more helpful. So we're giving away these spiritual principles, the directions. It's just written in a different way. Like I see the program in here, right? Our way of life. My house at times can be filled with strangers, but you guys are my family. You're just coming into my home today through Zoom because it's 2025 and not 1940s. But there was just, I literally there was so much that popped out at me tonight. And because this is the first time I'm studying this chapter this way. And, more is always revealed. It's on God's time, so I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Because if I would have studied this chapter any time before today, I don't think that I would have identified. God can't reveal to me something until it's time. I have to be at a certain place. Well, let me not say I have to be. It's being in God's will. And, no matter what life throws or tries to, I can continue to maintain a spiritual fitness that allows me to be in a place of serenity, peace. I don't accept invitations to fights today. All of those things. I'm not who I was as a result of these steps, right? These principles, being able to practice them in all of my affairs. And no, they're not in every affair. I wouldn't be able to have opportunities. I need opportunities to sharpen my tools. I need opportunities for God to reveal more. So I'm gonna, I'm not gonna get 100 every time. But I don't think that my higher power, I don't think God is scoring me like a text, This is a journey, and we get to trudge together, and, we had good fellowship before, and this is a spiritual way of life, and, there's a few places I can go today that I know that the spirituality is felt, and it's felt through a Zoom room, and it's, just as powerful, even more powerful in person, but, today I get to stay recovered based on my spiritual condition. And now I have more tools by this study tonight, right? Like, I can hand this book to somebody and say, read this. Can you relate to this? Instead of, like my mouth running. Let me, have them identify somebody who is dealing with an alcoholic, right? I have that tool. That's an amazing tool to have. I don't know when I'm going to need it, but I'm just here for the ride, because it's the most amazing ride of my life, being in the spiritual way of life. The good, what people call the bad, I don't have problems today. I get opportunities, and that's God's grace. Because left to my own devices outside of His will, jails, institutions, that's what my behavior gets me. And so I'm just thankful I don't have to behave that way anymore. So I'll keep coming back. Thank you all for being a part of my sobriety. I love you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, Paula. Welcome. Come on in.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you, Jamie, for your service. I'm Paula, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. And what stuck out to me tonight in this reading came at the very end of the reading. It talks about the slightest sign of fear or intolerance may lessen someone's chance of recovery, and we never try to arrange someone's life to shield them from temptation. God has either removed that person's liquor problem, or He has not. And I have found this to be true with family members, with friends, with people I know who come to me for advice. I mean, I've had people say, look at what that person is doing. You need to go talk to them and tell them what to do. And, the other thing at the end of this says, we have learned the hard way, from painful experience, that doesn't work. So I love these paragraphs that talk about that, because, we were free to find our own path and our own bottom. And then when someone comes to you and they have a willingness, then you're able to be helpful and useful. So I am able to stand back, not to give advice when I'm not asked for it. Even I've learned with suggestions, unless I see someone, there have been times when I've thought there's just a crack of light and maybe an opening, and I've gone in there with that, and I've learned very quickly not to do that anymore, to really wait until someone asks for help. And as a result, I have peace and serenity in my life, because I'm not trying to control someone or manipulate or manage someone into sobriety, because I can't get sobriety for anyone. No one could get it for me. I had to find my own bottom, and I had to travel my own path and reach out my hand. So I love this Al-Anon advice here in this at the end of the reading. And I'm chuckling a little bit on the good luck and God bless you. I can definitely get with the God bless you, and I guess I can use a lot of luck when I'm looking at family members and praying, and that's really what I do. I pray all the time, and it's amazing how God answers those prayers without me doing anything other than praying and showing up with unconditional love, no matter what's going on. So thank you so much for this reading tonight. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, Paula. I'm glad you're here tonight. Hi, John. Welcome.
My name is John, and I am an alcoholic. Great to be here. Great to be sober. And extremely grateful to be at a meeting that people understand how my brain thinks. Because for this alcoholic, it truly is a thinking problem. Drinking is just symptom. I love this reading from where I started and finishing out the chapter. And I can identify with some of this because my amazing wife that I have today understands that if I'm not in a meeting, or if I'm in a meeting, that it's for the best of her and for me. And, sometimes I know that Alyssa knows this, but my wife is from Laos, and so she doesn't speak a lot of English, and she doesn't understand everything that I'm saying at times. And we struggled, but we got through it. We worked together, and that's what the traditions and the steps have taught me. And I'm just blessed because this digital platform we call Zoom is alive and well, and I can be on a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I could just still identify with so many so much of the reading, and more importantly, I can identify with the shares that I've heard so far today, and I thank you all for being part of my sobriety and your sobriety, and I thank Jamie and Trish for being the great hosts that you guys are, and folks, I'm just love learning more information, and I'm getting teary-eyed right now because God directed me to this meeting, and so glad that you guys are here tonight, and thank you. I'm going to end with this. Because of sobriety, my wife understands, and because of sobriety, my 15-day-old daughter is already sleeping because she knows that she's in a safe house and that Daddy's sober, and that everything is going to be okay by the grace of God. And it's just absolutely amazing. But love each and every one of you guys. I'm John Alcoholic. I'm going to take another God's gift to sobriety, and I wish you join us in that journey.
Thank you, John. Who's gonna be next? Hi, Jamie.
I really wasn't going to come in this early, but I guess I will. Hi, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and so happy to have all of you here and those of you joining us for the first time. Thrilled to have you, and Paula, as always, so wonderful to see you, my friend. The chapter everybody loves to hate because it's such a misunderstood chapter. Oh, it's outdated. Oh, it's misogynistic. Oh, it encourages beating on women. Oh, this, oh, that. Yet we have to understand the historical times of the 1930s and 1940s. And there were very few women in Alcoholics Anonymous at that time, and generally, when a man went into an institution, it was some sort of asylum to dry out. But if a woman went into an asylum, unfortunately, as a general rule, she ended up in a divorce, home ruined, loss of her children, loss of custody of her children, and all of those things. So isn't it wonderful that society has changed so much through the years, even though alcoholism is still such a stigma? The wonderful thing that, and I have to look at this chapter, and what have I learned through the 8 weeks that we've been on this chapter? So I've learned that in the beginning of this chapter, it's written from the alcoholic perspective to the alcoholic and non-alcoholic both. And it is written in a context of trying to help not only the newly sober alcoholic and the non-alcoholic understand how badly I'm going to react if I'm hurt, offended, or you crush my feelings. Because I'm such a sensitive alcoholic, don't you know? And I haven't even learned how to take my own inventory yet. And boy, I sure don't want you taking mine, because that's painful to hear the truth about myself from somebody else when I haven't gone through the process yet. So it does that for us from page 104 to page about 116 and a half. And at page 116 and a half, it begins to take a shift and it begins to talk to us from the experience of the wives. I believe that experience is some of the first 100 wives that Bill talked to and had interviews with to get a consensus instead of it being one person's experience and opinion, but to have the experience of many. Hi, Isla. And so then it begins to transition into a spiritual solution for our significant others. And I just use the term significant others or partners because it's the world that we live in today. It's not the 1940s. In today's world, we have many same-sex couples and so on and so forth, and that's fine. I have no opinion or feelings about it. But what I do have to come to understand about this particular chapter is the historical perspective that is given at the time. Now, here's the truth about alcoholism. Alcoholism doesn't affect us any differently today than it did in the 1930s or when Noah first crushed grapes, when he grew his first vineyard. Alcoholism still affects us the same way. Our behaviors, our attitudes, the way that we act within our families. All of those dynamics have been going on for thousands of years. The difference is, in today's world, a lot of times we mix non-conference approved substances with the alcohol, so the behavior becomes a little more outrageous and a little more radical. There's certainly plenty of abuse that goes on today in many forms. But most importantly is that there is a solution here. There's a solution for the family. In the foreword to the first edition, it tells me that this book was also written for those that we love and for those that love us. And if you're not familiar with that passage, may I highly suggest that you read the foreword to the first edition. And since we decided to put a timer on this meeting, I guess I better shut up. But as I do, I'm giving all of you an invitation to come in and share your experience, strength, and health. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, Lisa.
Oh, you just had to let that music go off, didn't you?
I'm Lisa, I'm an alcoholic. I could, this chapter, I can see both sides of this. Me being the alcoholic and being when I was in a relationship with an alcoholic. And boy, I did all the wrong things on both sides for a long time. And today I liked what Alyssa was saying. I got invited to an argument, and I was proud of myself how I handled it today. I'm not usually too proud of myself how I used to handle it, but I'm learning, and I didn't have to respond today. I didn't have to react. I did respond, only to say, please don't speak to me that way. So I set my boundary, came home and used my tools, and it wasn't long before I was just very grateful that I wasn't in that space. I actually was able to, the phrase God bless them, change me, change my way of thinking around it. And how lousy of a place that is. And it said somewhere a reason to drink. And that's kind of like what I saw, and I hope not for this person. But, and also, at the end here, that is why we are anxious that you understand and that you avoid these unnecessary difficulties. I never thought they were unnecessary. I was right. I had to say so. But, when somebody's in that state of mind, they're not hearing anything like that. So it was like, what's the point? Like today, the only thing I said was, please don't speak to me that way. And I left. And, but, they are unnecessary difficulties. What was it? Creating my own misery. I did that for years by doing just that, reacting or responding back when this person's out of control. And I'm just really grateful tonight, and that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, Xavier.
Hey, good evening, Xavier Alcoholic. Happy to be here. Always really appreciate the opportunity to come and learn and be with you guys. I think one of the things I like most about this chapter is it's a really practical chapter. It gives a lot of different scenarios, and you can tell they're truly speaking from their experience. I really like how they can make at the end when they talk about when somebody relapses, even though it's definitely not what you want, there can be a lot of good that comes out of that. And it's really cool that they provide those real life scenarios that I can appreciate, because it's one thing to talk about theory, but when people share their experience and describe the scenario around it, often I can take a lot out of that. So there's a lot of gems in these chapters. In addition, I've always, just really like this format. I love hearing everyone share and, what their take is on this reading. In addition, just on a side note, I'm happy to get through another holiday season sober. I know it's brutal how many alcoholics get taken out during the holidays. And I'm so grateful that we're all here tonight, that we're all miracles. Especially this time of year. The countless holidays I can remember passed out on my couch. My mom crying, and it was brutal. It was really, really bad when I look back. And then I don't make it to many in-person meetings, but I went to one the other day, and you have like one guy 2 years sober, he just relapsed. You have other people that relapse during the holidays, and it's tough. It's really, really hard. So, the fight is real. I had a niece that just, she's like 22, and my apologies, when you almost die because, I can't remember, not an aneurysm, but the other thing, when you literally go through withdrawals and then you almost die. But she had one of those at a really young age, and I'm hoping that she's going to start attending, AA meetings. I've offered my hand, and who knows, it's all up to God. I have 0.0 control over her decisions, but it's interesting being on the other side of that. In addition, just grateful to be done with the holidays. I need a holiday from the holidays, because both holidays are on Wednesdays, so there were a lot of Tuesdays and Thursdays that felt like Fridays and Sundays. It was really bizarre. So that was a very interesting holiday season. Other than that, lastly, just enjoying continuing to put this program, to everyday life, applying it, continuing prayer and meditation, continuing inventory. I just did some inventory as the meeting was going. I had a resentment. Did some 4-step inventory on something random. So I'll gladly share with my sponsor soon. But I'm so grateful that there's so many tools in my tool chest today with regard to how to go through life. And, when we get to these latter chapters, I really appreciate where it gets more into like practical examples and how they're applying all these tools that we've learned. Everything that sounds really foreign, like, being in good spirits, essentially, while your significant other might be early in recovery, or if he drinks, make lemonade out of the situation. Don't be harsh on him. A lot of very practical quality advice that I think as I continue to read, I can learn from. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Xavier. Good to see you. Hi, Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. I wasn't going to say anything, but I was listening to what Jamie was saying. And, history repeats itself. Even though it was written in that time of 1930s or 1940s, it was written. It was created. It had to be created. And it's still a lot of things there in Letter to Wives that is still being done in practice to this day. A lot of people don't understand, they don't know, but that letter to employers, a lot of companies have utilized it in dealing with their alcoholics that were drinking and causing all kinds of disruptions on the job. This big book is just so, I don't know, it's so dynamic, It is just paramount, to just like daily living and dealing with alcoholics. It's been used in so many different scenarios. Al-Anon being created by Lois, a letter to employers, the family afterward. And then that's when they have therapy. And a lot of these therapists are reading the big books. And they're looking in it. And it's like, yeah, what about the family afterwards? What about the impact? What about the effects? What better person can talk about it is the people that it has affected. What better person to talk about alcoholism and explain it to you is but an alcoholic themselves. These drug alcohol counselors, what do they use? The 12-step, the big book, the Living Sober book. AA is like the granddaddy of all 12-step programs. It really is. So it doesn't make a difference when it was created, how long ago. It is still up to date and so essential and being used right now in the 21st century. And one thing I like about AA is it's very adaptable. It's very flexible. All the changes and everything that's been going on, with diversity, with people, like what Jamie was saying, we have special interest groups and this and that, we have all this new technology now. We have our meetings on Zoom. There was no Zoom when I came to AA. There was no Zoom. Thank God there was no pandemic then, But I just know that AA it's strong. It's strong, and no matter what occurs in time and in history, AA is still there. And this foundation that was created, it's always going to be used. It's always going to be the basics. It may change. They may, like in the preamble, instead of men and women, they put people. It's the same thing, It's the same thing. And AA is going to stand. It's going to stand the test of time. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Glad you're here tonight. Who's next?
My name is William Alcoholic. I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody and stuff. And every time we read the big book, it was written in 1939, it always amazing to think the public relationship policy that they put inside of this book, and just looking at the spiritual principles that they sit down and the same thing when we do with sponsee, the same thing they tell the wife to do with your husband. If he don't get sober, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Find a course that you could do. As the same thing happened to Bill when Bill was trying to get Bob sober, and he went to Dr. Sipwood. When he was trying to get other people sober, not Dr. Bob, he was trying to get other people sober. And Dr. Sipwood said to him, "You sober." Lord said, "You sober." So out of these principles, for every human issue is being used today. Every human issue is that you can use. They just take away the alcohol, but use the spiritual principle. and I like what he said, what he said in the writing, what he said to her. So, like I say, don't focus on what he's doing so much. You know? Out of these spiritual principles, you can find a course for yourself. Grab the other ladies that sit around, other ladies who've been through the same thing, and y'all talk about your own issue, you know, with these principles. Yeah. So, you know, and for myself, I'm just so grateful that God brought me here, you know, to a place where I can deal with my issues, have the life that I have today. God forever be grateful for that, you know. Without these principles, without coming here and adapting to these principles, I don't know what my life would be today. And the pain of living, not no physical pain, it's the emotional pain that I was going through. The pain of not knowing, you know. And I came here and started reading this book, and I found out they knew more about me than I knew myself. You know, I'm still learning myself. But I continue to go here a lot of 24 later, but you know what? I'm so excited about it. You know, whenever I read it and I see these things there, you know, I'm getting excited. Now, before I would be falling asleep, bored and everything. You know, and definitely in the ending where it was saying that we have to learn, that some people have to learn the hard way, you know. I had to learn the hard way. For me, I don't know other people see, but I had to learn the hard way, you know, and I had to keep coming. And the way I learned by being educated by the fellowship, by the big book, the 12 and 12, all that, yeah. And today I'm just so amazing about how much they knew about me in 1939, because anytime, any alcoholic, no matter where they come from or what they look like, they start talking about alcoholism. I zone in right away. I identify with that. So for that, I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, William. Who's next? More meditation time?
Can I just say how much everyone used to hate this chapter? I'd be interested to know if their views have changed. I say it in a kind and loving way. See, you knew I would do that, didn't you, Pickle Chips?
I did. Pickle Chips, recovered alcoholic. You know what? I don't dislike it as much as I used to, but this is probably what, the fourth or fifth time we've read this, fourth, maybe third, fourth time we've read it. And I must say that my mind is more open, not because of the book, not because of the reading, but because of all of you and your shares. That opens up my mind a little bit, because I still cringe when we read it. I just don't like this chapter, and I don't feel it relates to me, because although my husband was alcoholic, it was all on me. My alcoholism was a problem, and his was never addressed. So, I like the Al-Anon references, because Al-Anon saved my butt. But yes, I like it a little more than I did last time. But I still, sorry guys, but I just have a hard time with this one. I like all the other ones, but this one's just tough for me to swallow. But I'm getting there. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Terry. I got to come back in for just a second. And Terry, I love watching you grow. I love watching all of you grow. Here's a thought to consider as we close out this chapter. Just like the chapter to the agnostic becomes a pathway for our relationship to God, Is it possible? Because life isn't over for any of us. I can actually see you folks breathing and sucking in wind in and out on your little Zoom squares, right? So is it possible that no matter how long we have been around Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, or any other 12-step program, that this chapter becomes a pathway for us to learn how to live in a healthy relationship with someone else, whether they're alcoholic, whether they're not alcoholic or not. I mean, I'll probably never have another relationship again in my life. But the truth is, I don't know that. I could be 97 years old and God might bring somebody into my life for the last 4 months of my life. And maybe I should know how to interact with them. And I believe that's one of the things that this chapter does for us, is it helps us to learn how to interact. I will shut up now because there's still time, and a couple of you people that I know have experience with this. Again, he says, in a kind and loving way.
There are no hands, so I will jump in. I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. And not because Jamie said there are still people who could share. But kind of piggybacking to his first comment and what Terry was saying, I never really liked this chapter when I came in. I was young, I had never been married, so, of course I couldn't relate to it. And it took me a while to realize that even though, yes, it's to wives, yes, it's to the spouse of an alcoholic, like Jamie just said, there's a lot in here. I can use this in relationships with my son, with my coworkers, with my friends, with people who I work with who can't decide if they're ready or not, and leaving it all in God's hands. I was in a face-to-face meeting a couple of weeks ago, and my in-person home group coincides with us every now and then, and somebody was in there, and he opened up and he's like, I hate this chapter, before the meeting even started. So I had to pull in some of the history and not just what we had read that night, and how this is what happened to the women who ended up going into institution when at that point. This is what happened to the men. This is what happened to the kids. And moving that into current. And at the end of the meeting, when he shared, he's like, I still don't like this chapter, but I understand. But mostly why I don't like this chapter is because it tells me exactly what I did to my wife, and I don't like the fact that I did that stuff to her. So it really opens up my eyes to how I affected other people, especially in the beginning, where it's talking about how we act and react based on what other people do. And then when the chapter moves into and ends with how the wives can take responsibility for their own recovery, basically. And working with other wives, recognizing that if I'll use the I, if I picked up, it was not going to be my husband's fault or problem. It was not going to be anything he did. It would have been an action on my own. And I remember when we first started dating, and he was, we were still in that getting to know you phase, and and I told him I was in AA, and he said, if anything ever happened that you would pick up a drink, I will be here. I will help you with that, and you'll be okay. And part of me is thinking, you poor man, you don't know what you'd be in for. But the fact that I knew that he, at that point, was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that both of us were okay. I've seen my son grow through listening to us go through the book every now and then. And I see how he interacts with people. Friends of his who may have drinking problems on their own, friends of his whose parents have drinking problems, and he's very open in, you need to talk to somebody, come over to my house, here's my mom's number, call her, she'll talk to you. And he has seen me interacting with other people, and the comment at the beginning of the reading tonight, your house is filled with strangers. You may not like some of them. I've had people come and stay with me, sometimes long-term, sometimes short-term, and we've talked about each time, yeah, this one worked, yeah, this one didn't work. And then I commented that there was going to be some company coming, and he's like, not again, Mom. He's like, no, they're only coming for a weekend. But he recognizes why it's important to be there for other people. And I wouldn't be able to do that without everybody in these rooms. And then when it talks about if your husband goes out to get drinking and realizing that the wives don't need to be alarmed, and at least life has gotten better, and the reminder of don't remind him about his spiritual deficiency. He knows about it. I haven't picked up in a couple of years. I haven't picked up in a couple of decades. I haven't had a drink, but there are definitely times that I am acting in that spiritual deficiency. And there are people who will remind me about it and point it out to me. My son has pointed it out to me that, you're not being very nice, Mom. Stop talking to me like that. And, and I've got to step back and look at that. If I am acting in a way where I am spiritually deficient, I am normally well aware of it before anybody else points it out to me. But what am I going to do about it? And it tells me later on, place the problem along with everything else in God's hands. I have to be God reliant. Whether it's my drinking, whether it's somebody else's drinking, whether it's a situation with somebody at work, a situation here at home, I have to place that problem and everything else in God's hands. Because so much is out of my control, so much I can't control. But God can. And as long as I have that God reliance and I'm following God's direction each day, I know that everything is going to turn out exactly the way it's supposed to, and I will learn from whatever is going on. And with that, I am going to pass it on to Art to take us out. So come on in, Art.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And the thing in the reading that we had tonight was the thought of having a slip is not necessarily a bad thing. And my experience was that slip was what was the final the final act, I guess you would say, that brought me to the position of being willing to surrender completely and take the first step. And I think without that, I might have gone who knows how long without being completely committed to sobriety. But it showed me that I'm weak, that I can't do what I think I can do. And so it showed me that I had to take the steps. I had to admit to being powerless. And from that time forward, I haven't had to drink. That's not to say that I haven't had issues and problems in my life. But God took away the issue of drinking as a problem in my life at that moment. And I didn't know at the time. I didn't know why that happened or what I should do about it. But it set me on a path of investigation. And so when there's somebody and you know, I was married at the time, but my wife at the time was an alcoholic, and she wasn't ready to get sober, and she had no idea what I was going through in that experience, and I don't think she appreciated any of it, but that's neither here nor there. For me, it was what was necessary to set me on this path of investigating the process. And the further into it I get, the more I recognize the need for God's help in this whole process. He has done for me what I could not do for myself. And he continues to do that. I have found that by following this process of sobriety as outlined in the 12 steps, I can have a good life. I can do things that I was unable to do before, simply because I have a different attitude and I have investigated the necessity for a spiritual path in my life. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that happens in my life is completely to my liking, because it isn't. There are a lot of things that happen that I would rather have been done and they had been something different. But what I've come to understand is that each one of those experiences has been necessary for me to come to the understanding that I have today. And without any one of those, I wouldn't have the life that I have today. And so I can say I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic because I have not had not had any desire to take a drink for a long time. And I'm grateful because God continues to do in my life what I could never do for myself. And so this chapter is talking about the inner relationship of people in our lives, whether they be spouse or friend or whatever the relationship is. People in my life are there for me to learn from. And the experiences that I have in interacting with those people that are part of my life is what brings me to where I am today. And I can have that feeling of peace because I have complete trust that God is in charge and He's not going to let me fall. And, so I can face things in life and be okay with whatever the outcome might be. That hasn't always been true, but it has for the last several years, a couple of decades actually. And I'm grateful for that. So I can say I'm grateful. And I can say I'm recovered because I have had no desire for alcohol in a very long time. So thank you.
Thank you, Art. And Jamie, would you like to read our closing?
I will. Thank you, everybody, for being here. From page 164. And this is where we find our 12-step prayer. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you. And we will go ahead and close out our meeting in our usual pickle people fashion with our hands up in the screen. Since we are not standing around the same table to hold hands, we put our hands up, and that way we're still connecting as we pray out, and we're connecting with each other as we connect with our higher power. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight, either because they haven't found their way to us, or because they came and they weren't ready or didn't want what we had, so then they walked away. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who leads us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father.
Our Father.
Who art in
Whatever in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And let us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom,
and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Keep coming back. It works, but only if you work it, so work it because you're worth it.
Good night, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, Paula. Good to see
Night,
you.
everybody.
Paula, good to see you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, William.
Night, William.